He had the endorsement of every single Republican member of Congress from the great state of Michigan, a Rust Belt state that helped propel him to his historic victory in 2016. And to the great people of Michigan, again, I know there's a couple of them here tonight, we'll be seeing you again soon. That is a state that we are hell-bent on winning in November. And if you look at the polling there, President Trump is doing phenomenally well. The great people of Michigan, just like every single state in this country, realize that their lives were much better off 3 years ago under President Trump's policies than they are today under Joe Biden's policies of tax and spend that have hiked up their taxes, robbing them of thousands of dollars every single month. I mean, Joe Biden is the worst president for the American worker that this country has ever had. More jobs have gone overseas in the last few years than came home because of President Trump's historic policies on behalf of the American worker. And so we have some great momentum in Michigan, and we're going to keep fighting hard to win that state in November.
Yeah, anybody from Michigan here? There you go. Well, that just goes to show there. And as we go around the country to all these Trump rallies, and mind you, after the 2020 election, President Trump did 38 to 39 rallies total post-election. And then, of course, when he announced his campaign here at Mar-a-Lago, he continued to do rallies as well. One of the things that we heard most from viewers was to shut down the border. That was the #1 issue. Now, if you go back 3-4 years ago, the border necessarily wasn't maybe a top 5 issue, even though it was under the Trump administration, it was secure. But now, Carolyn, the border is the #1 issue no matter where you live in this country.
Yes, absolutely. And the border was President Trump's signature issue in 2015, right? He came down that golden escalator saying that he was going to secure the border and what? Build the wall. And he delivered on that promise, building more than 500 miles of border wall, and that border wall should still be built, but the Biden administration stopped it on day one with the swipe of a pen and then sold the resources for pennies on the dollar. And shame on Joe Biden for doing that, because now 3.5 years later, we see the damaging repercussions to Biden's open border policies. We've had 10 million illegal people, probably much more than what the media even reports, come into this country illegally. That's more than the total population of 40 American states. And that's why you hear about that everywhere you go, Brian, because every state has become a border state. We see our facilities being overwhelmed. We see American school children in American cities being kicked out of their classrooms to make room for illegal immigrants. We see American leaders, Democrat leaders, might I add, it's all Democrats who are helping Joe Biden's open border crisis, they're complicit in it, giving out prepaid debit cards and credit cards to illegal immigrants, but we're not taking care of our homeless veterans that are on the street. And that's why President Trump is in this fight again. With all of the attacks that he faces, he is more fired up than ever to secure our nation's borders, because if we have 4 more years of Joe Biden, we will not have a country.
I agree with you, and of course what is also happening is the amount of drugs that are pouring into our country. Here's a little known fact you may not know: over 300 people a day die of a fentanyl overdose. And just in the last couple of weeks, I've had two separate people come up to me and say, hey, my son accidentally overdosed on a Xanax. It was a generic Xanax that was laced with fentanyl. So no one's talking about that, the impact it's having in our communities with the reckless open border. And guess what? These pills are made in China. They get shipped in, they enter into Mexico or Central America, and then they are pipelined up here. So guess who's getting rich off of all of this?